Our rules are simple, but the challenge is great. No shoulder pets, tames that can be carried, or typical boss dinos allowed. That means no Rexes, Therazinos, or any other dinos people normally use in these fights. Equipped with official server cap saddles, our 19 contenders will be backed by the commanding presence of a loyal Uteranus providing that extra boost. All competitors will go into battle with food to provide a healing effect. Herbivores will have plenty of sweet veggie cakes, and carnivores and omnivores will have cooked meat. No Overseer, because the movement speed required to get through the tech cave then chase the Overseer during the fight would shorten our list by a lot. It's important to note that tames in this series aren't typically used during boss battles because of the amount of mutations it would take to make them competitive. I'll be applying around 23,000 health and 1200% melee through mutations and experience levels to all dinos that compete. This will give them all a fair shot at defeating at least one of the Guardians. It won't always be feasible to reach these stats depending on the dinos I'm using, but I will let you know the amount of mutations and levels it took in order to reach it. All competitors start out with 50 base health and melee and 40 points in everything else before I apply mutations and experience levels. Use this information and decide on your own servers if the juice is worth the squeeze. Competitors are required to fight the Megapithecus, Broodmother, then Dragon on all difficulties, starting with Gamma, then Beta, finishing with Alpha. Their success will be annotated on this scorecard with a pass or fail system. Now let's introduce our competitor and see if they have what it takes. Araneo. This creepy crawly inhabits the caves on the island, and most survivors encounter them when they come bursting out of the mesh and launching their sticky web juice all over them. This critter has a low damage but high speed primary attack and a secondary web attack it can fire from a distance. I was unable to reach the standard stats in this challenge without setting all unnecessary stats to 1, so the base stats used are 50 in melee and health and 1 in everything else. In order to hit the 23k health and 1.2k melee for the competition, they needed a massive 117 mutations and the maximum 88 experience levels. 87 mutations and 67 levels went into health, and 30 mutations and 21 levels went into melee. Now let's see if these 8-legged freaks have what it takes. The green portal was lit, and I have to say going into this I was dreading this video. Anytime I have a creature die a lot in this series, it takes me a lot longer to record it because the prep time getting set up prior to recording takes a while. Full wipes are absolutely brutal. One of the community members figured out the aggro mechanic for us, and they're still collecting the data, but go check out the community tab for the details. Based off that data, I knew that the small carnivores such as the Araneo aren't going to pull aggro from Commander Utes, so I knew going into this that I'd be doing a lot of running. The problem is the Araneos can't hit shit, and the Megapithecus had these guys flying all over the place like ping pong balls in a Bangkok strip club. The Araneos are able to pull it off though, slowly, and earn their first pass. The Gamma Broodmother was up next, and I initially tried to block her, but there wasn't a snowball's chance in hell. The underwebs are just too damn short, so I'd have to resort to tanking. This signals something I always dread. Commander Utes is eventually going to have to die a few times, and he's already having some significant mental health issues. Apparently the clones hold on to old memories or something. The Gamma stage isn't that difficult, and I'm able to tank all the shots while the Spooter squad goes to work on their relatives. It still takes a while, even though they're able to land more hits than they could with the Megapithecus, and the underwebs get their second pass. The Gamma Dragon. Surely these guys weren't going to beat him, right? Well, you see, when your creatures don't take aggro, it opens up a different strategy. You're able to wedge your Uteranus sideways up under the dragon's titties and not take damage while your army hits it from the back. You can even control which direction he breathes his fire based off how left or right you're positioned. The underwebs surprisingly are able to hit the dragon a lot more than I thought they would because short creatures typically struggle with that. They weren't always firing on all cylinders though. There was a landing where they didn't land a single hit at all, but I was able to minimize the damage they received and the underwebs were able to put the dragon down, earning their third pass. The blue portal was up and the awesome arachnids were about to enter a world of pain. I had a feeling they might be able to pull it off against the Beta Megapithecus, but there was no way in hell they'd be able to defeat the other Beta bosses, would they? The knockback in this fight between the Megapithecus and the Squatch Brigade is comical. I already made the ping pong joke, but seriously. There's no choice but to tank him so the underwebs are able to stay in range and land some hits. It's a damn shame that OG Island creatures can't land their debuffs on this guy, but future ones like the Deinonychus can. Slowing him down would actually be super useful. The time eventually comes where I have to let Commander Utes get punched to death, and I successfully transfer to a Spooter before realizing how screwed I am. Remember, I had to set all the stats other than melee and health to 1. I wanted to keep their overall level and individual stats in line with what is achievable on official, and this means if I'm riding one, I can't move very fast because they're encumbered. It takes some significant time, but before we lose a spider, we're able to down the big man, earning a surprising Beta victory and another pass. The Beta Broodmother. I think we all know how this one's gonna go. Just to show you the huge gap in difficulty between the Megapithecus and the Broodmother, I'm not going to cut the first hit to the last hit on Commander Utes, so you can see how fast the wheels fall off on this one. Imagine if the Megapithecus could hit this hard. The underwebs are small and get so far underneath the broodmother that they're taking a lot more hits than they normally would if they remained on the outside. Unfortunately, they can't because of the way the hitboxes are. The broodmother is an absolute monster. They really need to do something to close the difficulty gap between her and the Megapithecus. That's just my humble opinion, though. Commander Utes takes a massive punishing during this one, and when I see that things are starting to look grim for him, I ease my way around to the area where I see more underwebs to prepare for my transfer. Death was inevitable, and if you see how much health the broodmother has left at this point, it's clear that there's not a damn thing I can do to win this one. Commander Utes' time is eventually up, and I make the transfer to an underweb. Seeing my boy die for the 1000th time, the horror. I can't take it. Anyway, Alpha Broods must have let her sister know to keep me away from her at all costs because this bitch was relentless. Eventually, my eyes were crossed and I couldn't tell which spider belonged to me and which one was the enemy. Before I knew it, her bastard children had me surrounded, and the underwebs get their first set of fails. The Beta Dragon. I'm usually more confident fighting the dragon since I can take advantage of some, let's call them situational advantages instead of exploits. I'm not sure what was going on with the Beta Dragon in this fight, but the underwebs struggled to land any effective hits, and to be honest, it was pretty frustrating. The more times that the dragon takes off and lands, the more times we have to take guaranteed shots of fire, so landing hits in each transition is very important. Commander Utes once again burns to death, and I have to resort to finishing the fight on Spiderback. This is where shit hits the fan. You ever seen The Wizard of Oz? I felt like we were dealing with a bunch of flying monkeys here, and the spiders struggle to kill other pteranodons and dimorphodons. Eventually, the dragon decides to enter the fray and starts raising hell. It doesn't take much time, and eventually almost all the underwebs are defeated, and I am slaughtered before I can make it to another spider, handing the underwebs another set of fails. The red portal is up, and I never thought we'd see it. We're already in the realm of impossible, and the Araneos are ready to test their strength against the Alpha Megapithecus. There's no way to sugarcoat this. The Araneos suck, big time. The only reason they got this far was because they weren't taking aggro, and if they did, I don't think they would have passed the Gamma stage if that was the case. With Commander Utes quickly being killed, I had to resort to the super exciting tactic of riding on a Spadooter. The Gigantopithecus in this fight kept me away from the Megapithecus for most of it, and he's lucky they did, because I would have barely scratched him. The underwebs were able to put a small dent in his health before they were all eliminated, and I wasn't about to be killed by a bunch of damn dirty apes, so I leapt to my death, ending my life the way Alpha Broods tells me to all the time, jumping off a cliff. We capped the competition off with a fail. Heading over to the scoreboard, you're going to notice a change. I decided the shit metal is going to just be for shitty creatures, like the Araneo. The Megalosaurus didn't clear the Gamma stage during the daytime, but considering how well it did otherwise, I think it deserves a bump up to a bronze Boomsmith. The Araneo gets the turd though, a big juicy one, and there's no change in that. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you're new to the channel, please subscribe and check out the previous episodes in this series. There's a lot more to them than just the creature fighting the bosses, I promise. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.